Hey, I was thinking of taking mom on a trip for her birthday. Do you think that's okay? My husband approached me with this idea when I got home from work. He has a good relationship with his parents. My in-laws are friendly and have always been kind to me. However, since I got promoted, I've been busier at work and haven't had much chance to see them. It's fine by me, but are you okay with me not going? Right now, my work is just too hectic and it's difficult to take extended time off. I can't join for a trip. But my husband understands. It's okay. My parents know how busy you are, Emily. And they seem to be on edge a bit when you're around. It might be easier if I go alone. Join us next time when we visit their house, okay? Indeed, staying overnight with my in-laws is a different matter, even if we get along well. I wanted them to enjoy themselves freely, so I prepared a gift for my mother-in-law and asked my husband to give it to her. But this was where everything started to go wrong. My name is Emily, a 32-year-old office worker. I met my husband Tim 3 years ago and got married. We've been thinking about having children, but my work has become more demanding, and we haven't made much progress. Even after marriage, I wanted us to have our own time, and we're fairly content with not interfering too much in each other's lives. On the day my husband left for the trip with his parents, I headed to work earlier. I had just settled into work when I received a call from my husband. He told me he was heading to his parents' house and would leave for the inn the next morning. He had been doing a lot of overtime and working on weekends, so this would be a nice break for him. I told him to enjoy himself. But then, the weather turned ominous in the afternoon. The forecast changed to heavy rain, and we were instructed to leave work early, so I headed home in the evening. It was already starting to rain, and the sky was dark. I only had a small umbrella, but I managed to get home before it started pouring. My in-laws live in the neighboring states. Worried, I called Tim. I'm at my parents' place, but it's not too bad here. Should be fine, he said optimistically. Indeed, it wasn't raining that hard yet. Weather forecasts can be exaggerated, and it might not rain as much as predicted. I was a bit relieved, thinking my elderly in-laws would be okay, since Tim was there. However, as the night progressed, the rain grew heavier. It was stormy outside, and it seemed best to avoid going out. Concerned, I turned on the TV, and it appeared to be raining heavily where my in-laws lived. Oh dear, I thought, watching the live broadcast from their city. That was the city where my in-laws live. I called Tim in a panic, but couldn't get through. I sent an email but got no reply. Worried, I called my mother-in-law, and that's when I learned the shocking truth. After a few rings, she answered. Hello, are you okay? I saw it on TV. Emily, thank you. Things are quite tough here. While we were debating whether to go to the shelter or not, we ended up getting stranded. Apparently, the rainwater had overflowed considerably in front of their house, making it impossible to walk to the shelter. They didn't have a car at the in-laws' house and had taken refuge on the second floor, just in case. What? But Tim drove there, didn't he? When I said this, my mother-in-law sounded puzzled. Tim? Coming here? I didn't receive any message about that. There seemed to be some confusion in my conversation with my mother-in-law. As we talked more, it became clear that she thought Tim was coming home due to concern about the rain. No, it's not that. It's a trip starting tomorrow. He said he's coming over today to leave in the morning, I explained. A trip? What are you talking about? As we continued, I began to understand the situation. But right now, I was more worried about my in-laws. I told my mother-in-law to gather any necessary items, and I jumped into my car. I've been into camping since my youth and often drove on mountain roads, so I had a car suited for rough terrain even before getting married. I thought about getting rid of it when we married, but since my husband used his car for work, I decided to keep it. I hadn't been camping recently, so the car hadn't seen much use, but it proved invaluable now. I reached my in-laws' home in about an hour, and the rain seemed to have let up a bit. Still, it could get worse at any time, and the nearby river was rising, so it was best to leave. I urged my in-laws to hurry into the car and brought them back to our house. Once at home and after serving some tea, they calmed down, and I felt relieved. Then my father-in-law spoke up. "Emily, I'm sorry to impose, but I can't reach Tim. Can you tell me what's happening?" I couldn't lie anymore. I explained that Tim said he was going on a trip with them and left home. But they knew nothing about it. A sinking feeling took hold of me. I went into Tim's room and found several travel magazines. I had seen him reading them recently, thinking he was planning where to take his parents, and didn't inquire further. But on closer inspection, these magazines clearly targeted couples. There appeared to be several options considered, as the edges of the magazine pages were folded. As I looked through them, I noticed one place was specifically marked with a circle drawn in marker. Moreover, the website for booking that particular lodging was marked quite diligently. How obvious. I booted up the computer in the living room. The history showed access to the lodge's booking site, and a confirmation email to an unusual email address. The reservation was for 2 people, not 3, as it would be for a trip with his parents. I usually use my work computer, so I rarely touched this one. Tim must have let his guard down. He was surprisingly careless. I remembered Tim liked writing and kept a diary. I went back to my husband's room to look for his diary. Surprisingly, I found it easily. With some hesitation, I opened the diary. To my dismay, today's date was marked with the word trip and a heart symbol. Looking back, the diary was full of clear evidence of infidelity. He either didn't feel guilty or reveled in the thrill, writing joyfully about dates. I couldn't recall everything, but it seemed he went on dates on days he claimed to work overtime or on weekends. If it was just suspicious, I might have kept it from his parents and talked with Tim when he returned. But it was too blatant, I couldn't hide it from them. And the blatant infidelity was something my pride couldn't tolerate. As I talked with my in-laws, my phone rang. It was Tim. I asked them to stay quiet, and answered in a rushed tone. "Hello, where are you right now?" A calm voice responded from the other end. "At my parents' house." "I told you about the trip starting tomorrow, didn't I? I emailed you this afternoon. Why are you so frantic?" "I was worried about you because I saw on TV that there was heavy rain in the area where your parents live." "Oh, yeah, it's raining heavily, but no problem." "Is that all?" My husband casually lied. He couldn't possibly know the local conditions since he was supposedly on a trip in the opposite direction. My father-in-law was visibly angry in front of me, but my mother-in-law was trying to calm him down. "Got it. You're coming back the day after tomorrow from the trip, right?" "Yeah, I took the week off. After dropping my parents off, I'll stay there. I'll be back in 3 days." Planning such a long infidelity trip. Suppressing my anger, I somehow managed to end the call. Then I said to my in-laws, "I'm sorry, but I don't think I can continue with Tim. It's clear he's cheating. He must be planning to end things with me. Well then, I'll file for divorce before he does." That's my pride speaking. Luckily, we don't have kids and my job is going well. I won't have much trouble living alone. In fact, without having to do my husband's share of the housework, life might even be easier. My mother-in-law was crying, and my father-in-law was angry. They kept apologizing to me, but they're in a difficult situation too. It's not their place to apologize. The fault lies with my husband, not them. I figured they could at least get some information about the situation at their house from TV or the internet. Not even bothering to contact his parents to alleviate their worries, what does that say about him? He might be too caught up with his affair, but still, that's just too much. I'm disappointed. I thought he was someone who cherished his parents. After explaining, I asked for their help. "Could you help me with something, then?" The next day, I took a day off from work and set my plan in motion. By morning, the rain had stopped, and the TV reported no major damage to my in-laws' area. They seemed relieved. After confirming this, I started packing up the house with their help. I called a friend who worked in real estate and found a new place to rent immediately. It was off-season, so there were readily available properties. In between packing, I contacted a moving company, which could move me the next day due to the off-season. Things moved quickly, and I found a place near my office. With the help of my in-laws, most of the packing was done by evening, so I took them home. The next day, I would be leaving the apartment where I lived with my husband. There was no hesitation in my decision to move out quickly. Originally, this apartment was mine, and I still rent it under my name. We thought we'd continue living here until we had kids or bought a house. I had a relatively long relationship with the landlord and would chat whenever we met. I explained the situation over the phone and arranged to cancel my lease by the end of the month. The landlord was surprised but understood and agreed to change the door lock code before my husband returned. When I first moved here, I was perplexed by the unfamiliar number lock, but now I realized the advantage of being able to change it quickly. The next day, the movers took my belongings to the new apartment. I arranged for a courier to send my husband's belongings elsewhere. The new place was surprisingly perfect for me, and thanks to the off-season, the rent was waived for the first month, and the moving costs were reduced. Once settled, I quickly visited a lawyer's office. My in-laws called, worried, but I told them I'd moved safely and would contact them again once I settled down. As expected, my husband called that night. "Emily? Where are you? The key won't open the door. The mailbox is blocked too. What's going on?" Hearing my flustered husband, I couldn't help but laugh. "I moved out." "What?" "We're getting a divorce." "What?" I said coldly to my astonished husband. "Isn't it obvious? How can I continue a marriage with someone who lies about a family trip to go on an affair?" He fell silent at my words. "And how can you not even contact your own parents during a disaster? That's too much." "Disaster?" "Of course, you know. Haven't you been checking the TV or internet at all? But don't worry, your parents are safe at my place. But you might not be able to return to that house anymore." As I left the in-laws' house, my father-in-law firmly stated, "Tim is no longer welcome here. He must atone for his sins." "Wait, what do you mean? What should I do? Where are my belongings?" My husband began to panic more. But I had no sympathy left. "If you're going to cheat, at least be discreet. I know all about your affairs, her name, her address, the lodge you visited, everything." He always took notes, and his diary detailed the affair, her identity, even her address. The computer history revealed everything. Was I underestimated, or was he just foolish? Well, it might be a bit of both. "Go through a proper divorce before moving on to the next one." Then he said something unbelievable. "It's not what you think. You've been busy with work, and we've been eating more ready meals. You've been slacking on the chores." I lost it. "Slacking on chores? I've been doing all the housework, and you complain? You could have helped out. I asked many times." He went silent at my outburst. "By the way, your stuff is sent to her place." His voice changed as I mentioned this. "Wait, why?" He probably thought I sent his belongings to his parents. I didn't want to bother them, especially after the flood, so I sent them to his affair partner instead. "By the way, it'll arrive tomorrow, hope her husband doesn't find out." She was a married colleague. "What have you done?" He was yelling, but it was none of my concern. "You're at fault for cheating. I've got enough evidence, and I've hired a lawyer. We're getting divorced." "But I thought you tried to win me back if you knew about her." I was speechless. "You overestimate yourself. I wouldn't bother winning back someone like you." I ridiculed him and hung up. Later, I sent a certified letter to my husband's company and demanded compensation from him and his affair partner. His belongings' arrival at her place caused trouble, leading to her divorce and claims for compensation from both sides. Neither my husband nor his affair partner could stay at the company, and they resigned. I successfully divorced and received alimony, but I don't know much about what happened to them afterward. However, I still have a little contact with my former in-laws, who send me gifts during Christmas seasons. I heard they've decided not to let my ex-husband return home. Even they don't know where he is now. Returning to single life, I only have to cook and clean for myself, no longer needing to cater to my ex-husband's picky eating habits. On busy days, I can simply relax with a beer and snacks. Somehow, life feels more fulfilling than before.